the year is coming to an end. 2019 is coming to an end. It is also coming to the end of the first full year that I have been vlogging, turning those into podcasts. This podcast specifically has not been going on for a year, but it was kind of in some ways born out of my need to do this other stuff and to do these videos and whatever that I've been doing on my other channel. And so I've been reflecting on that a little bit, and I thought it would be really cool, well, not super cool, I thought it would be really cool is the very wrong term. I thought it would be timely and appropriate to discuss the legacy of an artist, because the very first video I made on my FK Arts channel was talking about, the introduction was talking about legacy, and the conversation was about legacy, and that had something to do with why I started doing these videos and podcasts and things to begin with. So I thought, yeah, it would make perfect sense to just have a discussion with myself about legacy and artists' legacies and things of that nature. I think that maybe we'll start in general and then eventually end up in the specifics to do with me personally. So I think that one thing that was on my mind is that it's really difficult for contemporary artists to leave a legacy the same way artists before them did, simply because of overpopulation, oversaturation, overexposure. Not like one artist being overexposed, but I just mean the internet being a thing and people being overexposed to artists. I shouldn't say overexposed. It's the freedom of information. It's the fact that you can look up so many different things from so many people internationally all around the world, as long as they're connected to the internet, and so are you. You've got access. So the ease of access is amazing. But it also leads to, I can't say it does anything bad. It's really difficult to say that it does anything negative whatsoever. It enables someone to look up, what they want and find what they want and stumble across what they really like. And it enables artists that normally wouldn't have direct communication or direct exposure or whatever to control their audience to a degree and where they put themselves. You don't need certain avenues and channels that you did before to be recognized by people or create an audience in the same way. Before, art critics had a lot more power than they do now. I think museums and galleries still have a lot of power in the fine art world, the capital A art world. Absolutely. But I think that when it comes to just, again, technology has changed things so much that we have this ease of access to just find artists, to find people, to find things that we like, that we enjoy, that we could possibly purchase, that we could follow someone. However, like I said, it's not just one person or one authority or very few different ones telling you what to think and who's cool and whatever. I think that this leads to way more opportunity for critical thinking, because I don't subscribe to just one media outlet or something like that, right? Like I read, it doesn't matter. Everything that I read or I research or that I look at or that's media that's incoming to me, I still, just because let's say Juxtapose, for example. I love that magazine. It's the first art magazine I ever started reading. I still read it loyally. It's great. Just because someone's in there doesn't mean I automatically think, oh, Juxtapose says they're cool, so automatically they're awesome. And I start following them. I'm like, no, that's not why I read that magazine. I read it to discover artists. I like to hear what people's process is. It inspires me. It gets me creative. Just finding out what people do. I think it's great. But it's not, the be-all and end-all. It's not the Bible, if you will. It doesn't tell me what's wrong or right. It just exposes me to people. I generally don't use Facebook and Instagram, or when I was using Twitter, I generally don't use that to find new artists. Fortunately and unfortunately, there's algorithms and things in place that give you suggested things that they think you'll like based on other things you like, and they pop up. And then sometimes I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, I kind of do like that. Or just the aesthetics of it. I look through someone's page real quick, I shoot it a like or a follow, and then I get to see that more often, and that is not a bad thing. However, I generally I read Juxtaposed, I read High Fructose, Border Crossings, sometimes other random art magazines. I do scroll through Instagram, but I'm not looking with the intent to see new stuff. Sometimes I get like certain newsletters and email or what have you, and I like discovering stuff. So I like researching in that aspect, very casual research. I wouldn't even call it research, just like casually reading about cool people doing cool stuff that I might think is cool, that might inspire me to do cool things. It's very rare that I search up hashtags. Generally, it's local. That's the one way that I look up when it comes to online presence. Local artists is by their digital presence through hashtags in my area. But this is all supposed to relate back to legacy. And what I'm saying is that technology has changed the game so much. And overpopulation has changed the game an incredible amount too. There's way more people, thus there are way more artists. Technology allows us to somehow, some kind of way catch up with that, and that we can find, I just think, if we were living in Canada, let's say the internet didn't exist or any of that ease of access, we would still have TV, but let's say that didn't happen or whatever, right? Somehow we would have to hear about someone in Europe, in France, in whatever. And if they were there in contemporary times, like presently, it would be really difficult, I think, to hear about them unless they became ultra mega super famous. And how did they become ultra mega super famous? I don't know. Like I said, it depends on the opportunities they get too, right? That's the thing. There's certain channels. Maybe they had to go to art school depending on the time period, and they had to get recognized by a professor, and they had to get amazing grades, and they had to go do this other thing, and then they had to get into the right gallery at the right time and be represented by the right art dealer and have the right everything. Maybe I think there were fewer channels beforehand for sure, and the legacy that those artists leave behind is it's just, I don't know, I don't know the ratios of population, there were this many people, there were this many artists, and this many of them left a legacy that we can somehow be influenced by today, that we can look at their work today through books, through study, they're in my textbooks, they're in an art history class, whatever, right? There's some that will just always be there that we keep pointing to, whether it's, and not even that ancient or anything, but whether it's Picasso or whether it's Da Vinci or Michelangelo or whatever, right? We can go back a certain ways and see they've left a legacy. Why? Because they created this movement, because they created that movement, because they were a part of this thing, because they used colors differently, whatever, right? I think there was way more opportunity then to leave a legacy, to influence things, and that's not just because of what we just talked about, technology and all this stuff and overpopulation, but it's because the fact that there's a lot of things that hadn't been done yet, right? Influencing and creating a new movement now, I think is a lot harder than it was then. There's all these things with modes of thought, right? There's conditioning, there's you're supposed to do things this way and that way and this way, and there's some people that went outside the box. And maybe it's the same ratio as there is now. Maybe that's just a thing that happens. That I don't know, the science behind that, the human science behind that, the statistics. But I imagine, after so many things have already been done, it's very hard to be original now in the way that some people would think of originality. I think that in some ways the work that I do is somewhat original, but that's because I'm generally not studying and what I would call looking at, and it's quotation marks there, looking at certain artists in order to be influenced and copy their styles and make it my own. I think everything inspires me to make what I make, whether that's, something I see on the street, whether it's art, whether it's not art, whether it's a feeling that I have, a memory, a moment, music, poetry, whatever. I just think that, in a lot of ways, people think of, let's just take a step into it, an art movement. Let's say, the first person to be recognized for doing abstract work, I think that was easier to get recognized for then than now. There's been so many things that have been done. And we talk about being in, postmodernism, and that's the last era. No, I don't even know what names to give things anymore. But, we had certain movements in certain areas of the world, and they became, oh, this is Impressionism, this is defined by these characteristics, and this is Surrealism, and it's defined by these things. And someone wrote a manifesto, and there was a whole school of thought and school of aesthetics sometimes, and process and things that went along with that style of art and that art movement. And I think now, I mean, over the course of time, when people have been like, oh, that's what that is? Okay, we're reacting to that thing. Or reacting to the human figure by doing this opposite thing. Or reacting away from abstract work and getting back into figurative stuff. Or whatever, right? Technology definitely moves our possibilities forward too, because it's like, oh, well, digital art couldn't have been a thing unless we had the means to do that. With our computers, we really didn't have the means to do that. Whereas before, with technologies, you know what I mean? Like, if it was maybe just like, you know, I don't know, I feel like acrylics or oil paints or any kind of paint is still paint. And the medium itself doesn't necessarily dictate what you can do with it. What I mean by that is that, like, yes, you couldn't create digital art with oil paint. But I mean, oil paints and acrylic paints, I feel like you can create the same type of work with them. They look a little different, but I wouldn't call it like an art movement. Whereas for some reason, digital art feels more like, I don't know, it's not by subject, right? You can make the Mona Lisa as a digital piece, you can make it as acrylic or oil or in pastels or in pencil, you can still make that same portrait. So maybe I'm just ruining my own point, but I feel like there are certain things you can do that are different with, you know, certain technologies that didn't exist before that might add to new movements. So I mean, like, if there's something, oh, this is all tangled up here, what's going on? I don't like what is happening with my necklaces right now. Okay, anyway, yeah, there are certain things that I think you can do. So I mean, like, when it came to certain types of architecture or something like that, like, I don't know, everything is a reaction to everything else. So I mean, like, with the art movements that came before, the social climate, everything is a reaction to something that is currently happening or what happened before it. But the more that has happened, the less there is to react to. I don't know. That kind of sounds backwards. The more that's happened, the more there is to react to, but the more opportunity there has been to react to it already. If that makes sense, I hope I think it makes sense, but you're not in my head. I'm trying to let you be there, but I'm opening it up and seeing if you can follow along. And I might not be doing a good job of explaining things, but that's just the way I'm explaining it. Yeah, it's difficult. Like, the more opportunity there is for people to do original things, the less opportunity there is to do original things. Like, the more opportunity because of technology, there's just more people. More people are going to try stuff. I just think it's harder to leave. Okay, it's harder and it's easier. That's the thing. Art is amazing, and it's confusing, and it's beautiful, and this life is just crazy. Because I feel like everything I'm saying, I have to say both things. It's like I have to qualify it with yes but no, no but yes. And it's that thing of, like, I think it's harder to leave a legacy because the artist as celebrity isn't as strong as it was in certain eras of time. And I mean, there's tons of artists that didn't get famous until after they were dead, right? And that's the thing that happens. And I think now we have artists, maybe more artists, getting famous while they're alive, but the level of fame and attention isn't the same as it was before. I feel like more people know who the Kardashians are than David Cho. Or any contemporary artist, really. Like, I can't think of a single contemporary artist right now that I feel like so many people would know the name of, that they actually, or that they should know the name of, that knows them more than the Kardashians. Or, you know, I just can't, you know. So there is, oh man, I lost my train of thought. Who would have thought that would have happened? I just feel like the level of celebrity, the level of influence or legacy or what have you, the reach because of technology right now is the potential reach is more. It's easier. But I feel like part of it is shift in culture, shift in importance, shift in what we value has changed, I think, a lot. And therefore, attention isn't put on artists as much as it was in other centuries. I think that there's still a lot of, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's as many new movements. Oh man, that's tough. There's certain eras of time where things just moved in a certain way. I can't say they moved quicker than they do now, because I mean things are moving so rapidly quick that maybe that's the problem. I don't know. Maybe there's not enough space to innovate. That sounds stupid to say. It's like, again, it's everything and nothing simultaneously, and it's really frustrating. I think that because of what we value in certain cultures, because of that, and because of so many people doing so many things, it's like when you see a doppelganger of someone. It's like, how does that person look like that person? They're not related at all, and we have competitions, that they're like, that you can be a lookalike of like a celebrity or something, and your facial structure is so similar. All you can do is dress like them and do your hair like them and maybe try to do a voice like them, an impersonation. But facial structure sometimes, or body structure and things like that, and you're like, holy crap, some people really look alike. Why? How? There's only so many combinations that you're bound to run into something or someone that is similar at some point. And I think that's the same thing of like, man, we all have original thoughts, and our original thoughts will be like someone else's. And the more opportunity there is, that's the thing. I keep getting hung up on the word opportunity. So, I guess what I mean is like, I don't even know how to explain it. There's more opportunity for less original thought, because there's way more people on the planet thinking thoughts and being creative, and it is an original thought within inside them, but there's way more opportunity for someone else to have the exact same thought. Therefore, there's less opportunity to have original thought. I think that is the clearest way I can put it right now with what I got going on in my head. Yeah. Therefore, that to me translates to less legacy too. I think legacy of an artist is usually due to original thought, usually due to being creative in a certain way, being or your processes in a certain way, by saying certain things. Your artistic philosophy is somehow unique, and I think that is what leads to legacy within almost anybody. Either it's, tragedy is still. If the same tragedy happened to the majority of people, it wouldn't be tragedy, it would be normal. It would be the regular, the average. So therefore, it wouldn't be this unique thing that's crazy that we all pay attention to, and we all know, and we all talk about, and whatever. It would just be like, yeah, that's what happens, So with artists and art and creativity and all those things, it's the same thing. I think that if someone is doing really, really, really original work and it's very, very unique, that is what we pay attention to. That is what dictates whether someone leaves a legacy or not. And I think it's just getting harder and harder to do that. The more we go on, the more people that exist. I mean, some of the original thought or lack thereof, or original creativity and stuff, is not even people's faults. It's that subconsciously you take in a lot of information and you do something with it, right? I'm sure that happens to me every single day, or every single time I want to do something creative. There's a certain combination of words that I heard that maybe I use again, and I wasn't trying to plagiarize or something. Maybe the context is completely different, but there's a certain combination of words that I really liked, and for some reason it's in my mind, and maybe it's from a book I read years ago. Or maybe there's a certain color combination someone starts using, and I really enjoy that too. Or like, I just start doing something in a certain way because I saw it a certain way, and I didn't think that I was doing something purposefully to copy or what have you, but I've been subconsciously influenced. That happens. And it goes into your work, and I just think that's the reality of the situation. Now, if you were looking at things that were not art, if I was just looking at life and I didn't, there's some bands that do not listen to music, period, or they refuse to listen to metal music if they make metal music, because they do not want any outside influences in that genre to creep into their album they're creating in the moment, right? I feel like with art you can't really do that as much. I think we see aesthetic quality and design everywhere we go, and that's just the way that is. That's the other thing too. I think that the less people that exist, the easier it would be to attempt to please the majority of them. And legacy, I think, again, is created by the fact that it has potential to move the most people, a significant amount of people. I think it's really difficult to leave a legacy if you did something that really just hit home for 10 people on the whole planet, and they just, like, that's way beyond, or way less than a cult following would be, you know what I mean, of a movie or whatever you want to attribute like a cult following to a certain thing. But a person, a movie, what have you, you can't do that without having a certain reach, like just completely moving people's hearts, and there are only 10 people that were affected by your work to such a extreme degree. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, you've impacted those lives, but I don't really, I mean, I haven't even defined legacy yet. I don't even know how to, I don't even know if I will. But I mean, whatever you think of legacy, whatever I think of legacy, it's going to differ probably somewhat, but I really think it's difficult for someone to leave a legacy within just a few people. In saying that, I also am coming from the aspect of a teacher, and I feel like if I was able to influence one person and they took something from me, and they were very conscious and aware of what that thing was, and they passed it on to their children, or their students, or their cousin, or nephew, or whatever, they pass that information on, and that person passes it on, and it's very blatant. I think that is a way to create a legacy, even within one, like, family, or one line of just one person to one person to one person, and it goes generations down. It doesn't mean that millions of people need to know about it. So that's an interesting thing too, I guess. And with that, I think I'll move into personal stuff with me, because I have this thing with mortality that I have a really hard time dealing with, which, again, if, the very first videos I did at all, and these conversations that I did, the introduction was all based on anxiety, mortality, and legacy, and all those things connect. And also how connecting with people in general, how that is a thing that I somewhat thirst for and focus on and fixate on through art, through communicating, through expressing myself. I'm somehow trying to connect with people even if I'm not getting anything back sometimes, and how that just feeds into everything. So legacy that I want to leave, like whenever someone asks you that, like, what is the legacy you want to leave? To me, it's never like what, but like how and if, and like, yeah, if, I guess, is the biggest thing. Because I obviously would value what kind of legacy I leave, as in like a positive one, not like a horrible one, that my legacy is one that's, impactful in a positive, inspiring, influential, uplifting way. But it's just, I can't determine the destiny of my paintings, for example, or my words that I write, or music that I've made. I have no idea what's going to happen with it. In 5 years, it could be completely lost somehow for some reason, or maybe these paintings will get passed down generations to generations to generations. I highly doubt it. But I mean, that's the thing. It's more about influencing thought, and that's the thing with all these like really valued artists that left legacies. I think it has more to do with artistic philosophy than it has to do with the quality of the work or the technical abilities or the technical qualities. I think that it goes hand in hand sometimes with the way that they did things and how they thought. And not always. I mean, we talk about Sistine Chapel. I was like, oh, it's beautiful. Okay, cool. It's a mural. It's a beautiful mural. And I don't really think there's anything right that I can think of other than just the pure technical skill and ability that makes some of Michelangelo's work noteworthy, other than the technical ability and the design quality of it. That's all I can think of. the proficiency and skill with your hands. But I think a lot more of the time it's someone started an art movement, someone was doing things in a different way, someone was thinking outside the box, someone's process was very different, the things they focused on intellectually, how they thought about art, the why they created the art, what it means, changing the definition of art. Those things are heavy and crazy and like wonderful, and those things leave a legacy. Duchamp leaves a legacy. Reading, and it's not always because someone's the first one, it's because they just happen to be the most recognized is the other thing, right? And that's the thing with the technology that we have, like there's more opportunity in a way to be recognized, but less but less. Simultaneously, there's more opportunity through technology and less opportunity because population, oversaturation. That's what I think. It's much harder to stand out, but it's easier for anyone to see you. Anyone can stumble on my stuff. If you have Instagram, you can find my work. If you've got Facebook, you can find it. You don't need to go through the channels of, there needed to be someone who discover me and then show me to the world through, lectures or through a museum or through whatever. The channels now for exposure are, tenfold what they used to be by far. But I just don't think it's, despite the fact that there's more opportunity to be exposed to an audience and be recognized, I think it's harder to leave a legacy. Again, because shift in values, shift in culture, and just the fact that, a large legacy. I mentioned how you could leave a legacy within one person to one person to one person to one person for generations, possibly. But at the same time, whenever I think of the word legacy, I think of it being very impactful on a large scale, where a lot of people are aware of the of what you have done. And I think that saying that makes me think that I'm like craving fame or something and attention in that way. I'd like to say I'm not, but in the same way, yes, it'd be nice to be recognized. It would be nice to do something worthy of recognition, though. It would be nice to have words that were impactful enough for people to think about. And by people, I mean a lot of people. Yes, that would be nice. And I think that I do things that are worthy of reflection, but then not enough that it snowballs into a viral, if you want to say, the content that I create right now in any aspect is not something that is being picked up on by masses. That is okay. I am okay with that. I still create what I create because I need to create it. But there is that thing with me that has to do with legacy, and I don't create art necessarily for legacy in the aspect of the masses, but I create one reason for the need to express and connect and somehow connect. And there must be some tie with me creating things that will maybe outlast me. And in the digital age, for as long as electricity exists and the internet still functions and whatever, those things have a potential to live longer than physical things would. Then again, it just depends on the state of our world, right? My mind's going to a dark place, people, apocalypse style. So I still have a Discman, for crying out loud, just in case there's an EMP that goes off somewhere, and then everything's fried and I can't use my computer and the phone or whatever, my iPod doesn't work, so we got to go back to batteries and a Discman. People, that's why I got all my CDs. I'm prepared. I feel like, again, there's more opportunity in some ways and there's less simultaneously. I really don't know. What legacy do I want to leave artistically? I don't know. It's really difficult to be I want to be the person to change art, to define it as something different. I don't think that's what I'm going to do. I don't think that's something that I've really thought about doing until right this second, because it's not something that's my mission. I just want to create, I just want to express, and yes, I want people to connect with it. I want people to somehow connect with me. I want people to think about things, even if the thing I'm doing is making them think about how they don't connect with me and they think it's ridiculous or stupid or the opposite of what I'm trying to express. That's at least something. That's an interaction in a way. It's somehow moving someone to think, and that is really what I want. Yes, to inspire critical thinking is the thing that I, as a teacher, that I want to do more than anything else. To teach people that there is a need for critical thinking, to inspire people to want to think about things in such a way that they don't have to just be a follower, that they don't have to be a sheep. Those are the things I focus on. Can I do that with my art? Sometimes, but generally it's through talking about art that I get people's attention. It's not by the actual visual art that I make. And I get attention sometimes with the visual art that I make can get attention with the aesthetic quality sometimes. And sometimes that opens up a conversation. But I guess that's the thing. Right now, just by talking about it, I'm trying to figure out what am I trying to do again? What am I doing exactly? Because I don't even know. Again, I've never thought when I started creating work about legacy, about it being around longer than me, about people seeing it. That wasn't why I started making it. And so it's still not the reason that I make what I make. But I also can't make a darn thing without sharing it, it seems. Writing too. Like, it's really difficult for me to express something and just have it for me. And that's a whole deeper thing that I don't know how to get into right now. But yeah, it's never just for me. And I know that's saying something, and I'd like to explore that topic deeper sometime, which perhaps I will, but I don't even know how to. In a way, I feel stuck on it in a way that I would talk in circles too much and not really say anything, which is already a problem I have. So forget about that topic right now and doing that to you. But legacy of an artist, I mean, it's, to me, it's not much different than legacy of a person. Like, I guess the label as artist implies something that it's important in a different way or something. The title suggests to some people, including me, honestly. But I don't really know. Yeah, my fear of mortality has nothing to do with art. It just has to do with being a human being and trying to defeat that fear of mortality, or defeat mortality, period. I guess art maybe is the avenue that I could do that. That is my artist life.